Cheat code, support strategist, by clouds. My head in the clouds, not coming down. On AO3. Chapter 31. Memorable. Uraraka watched nervously as Hitoshi tied the headband across his forehead. Are you sure that modifying the headband isn't going to get us disqualified? 2% sure, yeah, May responded, tightening the hoof bones on Uraraka's feet. Nowhere in the rules does it say we're not allowed to mess with the headband, Izuku said, confidently. And honestly, considering the setup of the sports festival, we're actively encouraged to use our quirks and support items on them. So, as long as we keep it visible in accordance with what Midnight said, we should be fine. Hitoshi put a sympathetic hand on Uraraka's shoulders. It was going to take some time for her to get used to the way his kidnappers did things, but she was doing remarkably well so far considering the circumstances. Just go along with it, he shrugged. My kidnappers are hardly ever wrong, and if something happens, well, Midoriya is Nezu's favorite, so he'll let him get away with anything. That's not... Midoriya blushed, bright red, and tried to hide his face. He doesn't like me that much, and he's the principal, so he has to be unbiased. And for the last time, we didn't kidnap you, Shinso. Sounds fake, but okay. Hitoshi smiled, and elbowed Uraraka until she started giggling. Well, Uraraka shook her head in disbelief. Even if this goes horribly wrong, it'll definitely be interesting. That's the spirit, floaty girl. May grinned and stood. The true goal of the sports festival is marketing, so even more than winning, our goal is to be memorable. Oh, they're definitely going to remember us, Hitoshi said dryly. It was just a question on whether or not that's a good thing. Uraraka was about to say something else, but they were interrupted by Midnight taking the stage again. Riders, mount your horses. Hitoshi watched as May's crazed smile got slightly more wild, and both Midoriya and Uraraka got scaredly determined looks on their faces. He still wasn't quite sure how he ended up with friends like these, but he couldn't help but be grateful he was on their side. As much as Midoriya might try to deny it, they really were impossible to stop once they set their mind on something. It was weird being the rider as the tallest member of the group. He understood where Midoriya was coming from with the more consistent heights being far better for horses, and Uraraka's quirk made it so that his weight wasn't an issue. But still, Hitoshi carefully put on a bored expression and leaned back slightly so that it looked like he was a king lounging on his throne. He could feel Midoriya's chuckling beneath him, and he couldn't resist smirking. This was going to be fun. Is everybody ready? Mike yelled. The crowd screamed in response, and Hitoshi felt his team shift under him as the other teams prepared to charge them. Midnight cracked her whip, and everyone leaped into action. Begin! Hitoshi's team immediately lunged forward, which caused a few teams to stumble back in shock, considering that if one didn't have Midoriya's as a strategist on their team, the most logical move would usually be to run away. Instead, Hitoshi's team ran straight for Bakugo's. In one fluid motion, Hitoshi whipped the headband off his head and threw it at Bakugo, whose eyes widened as the fabric started floating up and away without any gravity to hold. Have fun, Kachan! Is Mike's confused voice echoed through the stadium. Is that allowed? Technically, Eraserhead sounded almost amused, which Hitoshi hadn't really thought was possible. Though it remains to be seen whether it's an intelligent move. On the one hand, getting rid of the 10 million points immediately means they are no longer the main target. But on the other hand, it means they have 0 points. Having Uraraka remove the headband's gravity was a nice touch, though. Definitely added another dimension to this fight, Mike yelled, hyping the crowd. Team Bakugo is gonna have their work cut out for them trying to keep those points from floating away. Stupid purple bastard, Bakugo looked practically ready to explode, even as that tape guy from 1A, Sero, used his quirk to grab the headband out of the air before another team could. Deku! Drop it, Bakugo! The rock dude, Kirishima, yelled. We got the points now, so like Mike Sensei said, we gotta focus on keeping them. Hitoshi almost thought Bakugo was going to go after them anyways, but he just itched and turned away to combat the ice and fire guy who was going after the 10 million point headband. Only Deku would be useless enough to throw away points like that. Why, I oughta, Mei growled. Mei-chan, that's the plan, remember? Midoriya interrupted. We want Katsuki to underestimate us. We want everyone to underestimate us. Our job for the rest of the game is to disappear into the background. Well, that and mess with everyone to get as many points as possible, Hitoshi added. Speaking of which, hey, monkey boy, do you even have any points? Shinso, Midoriya squealed. Don't be rude. Hitoshi just shrugged, as Ojiro, if he remembered Midoriya's analysis correct, turned towards him with a scowl. More than you, our team isn't stupid enough to just give up our points. We'll see about that. Hitoshi couldn't hold back a smirk, but didn't take control of Ojiro just yet. Holding off, taking control was still difficult, but Midoriya had been right. It was getting much easier with practice. Plus, it was easier if he just had fun with it. Hitoshi stared at Ojiro for a few seconds before raising his hand slowly, widening his smile slightly for maximum creep factor. The other team was starting to get visibly nervous. One of the other members, a short boy that Hitoshi thought was in 1B, tugged on Ojiro's sleeve. Come on, let's just go and get some other points. These guys don't even have anything. Oh, really? Hitoshi shifted his foot to signal the rest of his team to get ready to move. Then suddenly closed his fist on thin air and yanked, using the jetpack that Mei had given him to close the distance between their teams, as he finally let himself take full control of Ojiro. Hand over your points. The rest of the team was still off balance from the little show he had put on, so no one was fast enough to stop a dead-eyed Ojiro from handing over his headband. Hitoshi released his control almost immediately, and their team simply used their momentum to carry on the field, leaving a very confused group of hero students to wonder how exactly they had just lost all their points. Shinso, Midoriya said shakily. Remind me never to come across you in a dark alleyway. Hitoshi couldn't help laughing. From anyone else, a comment like that would just rub him the wrong way. It was those kind of comments he got all the time from his classmates or foster siblings. But from Izuku, it just didn't seem as mean-spirited. You're one to talk. How are your murder notebooks coming along? They're not murder notebooks, Izuku squealed. Uraraka, don't let Shinso scare you. My notebooks are just analysis of a couple people's quirks, along with their strengths, weaknesses, and what babies we could use to destroy them. Mei finished gleefully. They're amazing! Uraraka's eyes were wide, and she looked slightly overwhelmed, which Hitoshi found extremely amusing. He almost felt bad, but then he remembered his first day of being kidnapped by the chaotic duo and figured he earned the right to laugh. All right, enough scaring the one hero course student willing to team up with us. Who are we going after next? The group looked around the field. Bakugo still had the 10 million point headband, but Todoroki's team was giving him a run for his money, considering that half of the field was now covered in ice. Several teams had gotten up in the crossfire and were currently frozen to the ground, which Hitoshi planned on taking full advantage of. Izuku's face lit up as he came to the same conclusion. So, Shinso, how do you feel about a captive audience? I think I could give it a try, Hitoshi smirked. Our best bet is to go after the lowest point values first, right? Quantity over quality? Right, Izuku smiled. That way we stay under the radar and don't risk catching the attention of the frontrunners. That seems kinda sneaky, Uraraka said, nervously. Oh, it is, Izuku agreed. But heroes like Eggshot have gotten on the top of the ranks by being sneaky. Sometimes what decides a fight isn't someone's strengths, but what weaknesses their opponents is willing to take advantage of. Hence, why we're taking advantage of everyone hyper-focused on the 10 million points, especially during the first part of our plan, Hatsume said. Ooh, who's first? What about that team from 1B? Hitoshi suggested. Midoriya? Quirks? Limb separation, glue, and quite literally speaking words into existence. Midoriya responded. Good choice. Just make sure you don't only focus on the rider, because while she could steal the headband back by detaching an arm or something, in this case, the horses are objectively the biggest threat in our mobility. Hitoshi nodded. They made their way over to their next target. Hey, do you need help? The girl looked at her teammates hesitantly, probably nervous about their kindness being a trap. It was, of course, but she obviously didn't know that she had already fallen into it. It's no big deal, Hitoshi said kindly. I mean, we're not hero students, so we weren't actually really planning on getting that far into the festival, you know? The kid in the front, the one with the glue quirk, if Hitoshi was right, visibly relaxed. Oh, okay. Yeah, we could really use the help if you're not going to steal our headband or anything. Don't worry, May piped up, happily. We're not going to steal it. Uraraka elbowed her and shot her a warning look, but Hitoshi was already delittering what red herring to use this time. He leaned over and grabbed the other rider's shoulder. Sorry, I just need to steady myself so I don't fall. May, this is the new flamethrower she wants to try out. He turned to the last member of their team. You are not afraid of fire, are you? No. The guy didn't really have a head in the traditional sense, but he seemed like he was shaking the emote currently floating above his shoulders. Just be careful. Of course. Hitoshi grinned and leaned down to grab both the horse's shoulders. Oh, and thanks, by the way. He took control of all three of them, letting out a sigh of relief as the pressure in his skull decreased. Give us your headbands. Oh, and May, can you melt them out? We did promise, after all. May laughed and used a surprisingly tame stream of fire to melt the ice around their feet, as Hitoshi tied their headbands around his head and turned back to his team. You won't notice your headband is gone until at least 1 minute has passed. He wasn't 100% sure that order would do anything, but if he could modify memories, then modifying attention should be theoretically possible as well, right? They'll have to see. Once they were melted out, he let his quirk go and held his breath as they blinked back to life, looking slightly disoriented as the rider skimmed her eyes over Hitoshi's forehead, her own headband clearly visible on it. Hitoshi held his breath. She smiled. Thanks for the help. The corners of Hitoshi's mouth twitched. No problem. He could feel his teammates shaken in silent laughter underneath them as they walked away and broke. I can't believe that actually worked. I was thinking, why is he releasing his quirk so quickly? Izuku gasped in laughter. That was awesome. I seriously thought we were dead, Uraraka giggled. Oh my goodness, that was a rush. Next victim, May yelled in excitement. Onwards! Izuku couldn't keep the smile off his face as they wandered around and started freeing teams that had been encased in Todoroki's eyes. Shinso was doing really well at changing up the fake activation requirements for his quirk with every headband they took, and besides him, Uraraka was gradually getting more and more confused. They had decided against telling her about the verbal response required, both so that she wouldn't have an unfair advantage if she and Shinso were to fight in the next round, and so that they would be able to tell if Shinso's redirect was actually working. Judging by the almost complicated expression on her face as Shinso literally segregated one of the teams, it was working exactly as they hoped. So, Izuku said happily, have you figured out how Shinso activates his quirk yet? Uraraka looked at the team that was currently handing over the headbands. Maybe eye contact? I don't know. Izuku grinned mischievously and turned to look at her, which is how he almost missed the dark figure lounging at them. Oh shit. Shinso immediately activated the jetpack, and Uraraka kicked on her hover boots so that they were out of range. But that didn't stop the shadow from ripping off two of their headbands. The team that we're currently facing had two 1B students and an AB student. But all three of them had animal-type mutations, which is probably what formed the common ground for them to have the confidence to team up. There was a girl with a horse-like mutation and a guy with a mantis mutation, but their biggest problem currently was the 1A student with a bird mutation. Note to self, Izuku murmured. Dark Shower is apparently fully sentient. Yeah, Izuku, I think we figured that out, Mei gribbled. What did you do to Fukami? Dark Shower yelled, and swiped at them again, forcing them to take to the air to dodge. Not that that would work for long. Okay, weak to light. Izuku's brain raced, and he started fumbling as Mei whipped out her flamethrower to keep Dark Shower at bay. So apparently he has his own conscious, or maybe his own area in Tokoyami's brain that would probably most likely, but there's obviously some kind of separation between the two. Don't care about the quirk theory right now, Izuku, Shinso yelled. Can I brainwash it? Because the way it's thrashing, Tokoyami's gonna wake up any minute. Izuku jumped. Yes, that's a great idea. Shinso shook his head and huffled in frustration. Wonderful, great, thanks. Hey, Birdman, you other half must be pretty weak if he fell to a wimp like me, huh? Dark Shower almost doubled inside as he lunged at them. Don't you talk about Fujiyami that way. They all flinched as Dark Shower swiped at them, only to stop, short inches from Hitoshi's face. Eyes widened as he felt fully under Hitoshi's control. They all exchanged glances and started giggling uncontrollably. Oh my gosh, Uraraka grasped. That was way too close. Agreed, Mei laughed. I almost thought he was gonna break my babies. Okay, Hitoshi shook his head. Crisis averted. For now. Wow, that is some quirk. I almost wish we had him on our team. I mean, you kinda do at this point, right? Uraraka asked. Or does your quirk not work for that long? Izuku looked between Uraraka and Shinso, then smiled and shrugged. I mean, why not? That is rude, Midoriya, Shinso grumbled. I'm not going to take control of a whole team. As long as we leave them with enough points to pass, they'll be fine, Mei dismissed. And you could give them back control for the last few minutes anyways. There was a moment of tense silence before Shinso sighed. Get as many headbands as you can safely. The mutant team rushed to obey Shinso's orders, and he shook his head. If this bites us in the ass, I'm blaming the hero. Uraraka squealed infinitely. Hey! Go ahead, Izuku smiled. You'll just be blaming yourself too, or are you forgetting that you're going to be a hero by the end of this? Shinso blushed slightly and looked out at the other teams that still had points. What about that guy from 1A? The one with the arms? Wait, did someone already take his headband? And is he allowed to be on his team like that? No, Izuku said firmly. My guess is that there's at least one other student hiding inside that tent he's making with his arms. And based on the size and the assumption in 1A students, my guess best is Mineta. To their surprise, they got a groan from Uraraka. Do we have to? Mineta's such a pervert. I don't want to even go near him. Oh, come on, Uraraka. I'm sure he's not that bad, Izuku said. Uraraka huffed. Whatever, let's just get this over with. They made their way towards the compact team, and Izuku could vaguely see Mineta leaning out to peer in between Shoji's arms. Oh my goodness! Shoji, look! They've got two of the curviest girls in here. Who knew support babes had such banging bodies? Izuku almost froze in shock. Sure, Mineta was theoretically whispering, but they could still hear him. Uraraka groaned. See why no girls want to team up with him? Hey, Shoji, right? Shinso called out. You seem like a nice guy. Why pair up with an incel like that? Shoji murmured something that Izuku couldn't hear, but it was obvious enough for Hitoshi if his slight smirk was any indication. Oh, they got headbands! Mineta yelled. Get 'em! Izuku's team shuffled backward as a tongue emerged from the space inside Shoji's arms. Sue? Uraraka sounded betrayed. You're seriously teaming up with the grape? Shoji's got good defenses, a voice croaked out. Sue sent her tongue again, and Izuku panicked for a moment as he realized they weren't going to be able to dodge again. To this surprise, however, Mei lunged forward and grabbed the tongue as it was reaching for the points, wrapping it around her arm like it was a stubborn piece of rope. I got her! Hurry, Shinso! Whoa! Mineta poked his head out and was practically salivating. I'm not usually into muscular girls, but damn! Do you think she could crush me between her thighs? Izuku's whole body tensed, and he suddenly wanted nothing more than to steal this guy's points and make him regret ever looking at a woman. How dare he talk about Mei like that? She worked hard for those muscles, and besides, she was right there. It was like he didn't even care about the girls hearing him talk about them like that. You better be careful, Mineta, Uraraka yelled through the odd haze of rage and unfiltered emotions, blurring Izuku's brain. You don't know what Shinso's quirk is, and for all you know, it activates by punching you in the face! Izuku and Hitoshi both froze and looked at each other before Hitoshi got a wicked look on his face. As long as he was punched before, Hitoshi officially took control. The pain, theoretically, shouldn't break the connection, and if it did, well, at least they would have punched the pervert in the face, right? Hey, great boy, Hitoshi called out. Do you want me to give you her number? I heard she really likes making babies. Critic-kun, Mei yelled. Yes. Mineta almost unseated himself in his eagerness as his team hovered off the ground and flew at him with all the speed that Shinso's jetpack could manage. His eyes widened as he realized too late that he wasn't going to be getting Mei's number. Hitoshi shook out his hand and took control of both Mineta and Shoji. That was weirdly satisfying. Now, give us your points. Sue tried to prevent Mineta from handing them over, but Mei simply yanked on her tongue and threw her off balance for long enough for them to lose their points and get away. They rushed to put some distance between them as Sue got her tongue back and smacked Mineta, loosening Hitoshi's control. It probably wouldn't be too long until Shoji broke through as well, especially since Hitoshi was starting to get tired. Izuku checked in with the other teams. Todoroki had at some point gotten the 10 million headband from Bakugo's team, but the two were currently fighting to try and reverse that. Not that it would matter much in a few minutes. Bakugo's original headband was gone, and Izuku noticed that one of the 1B teams was pushing a similar strategy, and working on building up the small points. The mutant team that Hitoshi was controlling had gained a good number of headbands and was currently eyeing Todoroki's headband, which wouldn't be a good since the resulting fight would knock them out of Hitoshi's control. He looked at the clock and grinned. Almost 2 minutes left, which meant it was time to move on to the next phase of their strategy. Shinso, call back Dark Shadow's team. Hitoshi nodded and yelled the order, and the team he was controlling immediately turned around and made their way towards them. All right, how many points do we want to keep? For this to work, I'd say we need half the points on board, not counting the 10 million, Izuku said. Which headbands do they have? Tokoyami robotically spread out the headbands they collected, and Hitoshi did the same with his. Mei quickly grabbed the ones they needed and shoved them into Hitoshi's hand, letting Dark Shadow keep the rest. All right, are we ready? Mei asked. Ready as we'll ever be, Uraraka said. I still think this strategy is insane. Oh, definitely, Izuku responded. But remember, the goal isn't just to win. Hitoshi released his control on everyone he was controlling, and Mei laughed madly as she took out a small remote and diminished the tiny explosive they planted on the 10 million point headband at the beginning of the game. The headband had been floating in the air halfway in between the two frontrunners, while both Yaoyorozu and Zero tried to use a whip and tape, respectively, to grab it and keep it from floating away to the atmosphere. The instant Mei pressed the button, flames rushed over it, leaving nothing more than pieces of ash and fabric floating down as a loud silence filled the stadium. Izuku smiled. The goal is to be memorable. As you have all noticed, well, my thumbnail is different. So, somebody in my Discord, Skytaka, drew this for me, this fan art for me, and I asked permission if I could use it as a thumbnail because I was so honored and I was so happy that, they drew this for me, and they said yes. So I am happy to have this. This is my official fan art. Not my official fan art, my official first fan art, like my first ever fan art. It's not of me, but it's of me. If it's my fan art because it's my thumbnail, my video. I count that as a win. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, people. Thank you very much. But yeah, that's what I wanted to announce. Onto like my little notes on the fanfic. So let's talk about how shocked I am. First, I didn't think they were gonna do that to the 10 million point. I thought what they were gonna do is like at the last minute hit a button and then the thingy would just, the headband was just gonna go right back to them and they would win. Boom. No. And you know what? I like what Clouds did with this. Cloud was cooking. And oh my god, to have it be destroyed. That is, they're gonna be remembered for that. That is gonna go down to the books. And you know what? I am proud of them. Oh my god. As I said in like the last couple chapters, I did not like the cavalry battle in the official anime. It's not that I hated it and I was like, ugh. It's just, it was the least memorable, right? So I think it's ironic that this fanfic makes me remember it and makes me love. So far, this is my favorite. I love it so much. Oh my god, I could geek out about it all day. As always, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds, have a wonderful day or night. Join our community Discord server, link is in the description, subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.